Jodi Remenap. How are you?
Hey, hi, how are you? I'm good.
Good. Thank you for being here.
It's my first podcast. I feel famous already.
Nice. Hopefully this just skyrockets everything for us. It'll be great. It'll be great. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your story with the audience as a fellow creative. Uh,
Mm.
it's always great to get many perspectives. Before we start, let me go ahead and give you a brief introduction for the audience. You are a entrepreneur, a chef, an event coordinator, and an all-around creative. You have a Master's of Science degree in physical therapy from Central Michigan University, a degree in professional culinary arts from Le Cordon Bleu College of Culinary Arts. You were an executive chef at Clean LA, boutique meal delivery service specializing in weight loss and nutrition. Now part of the Vita Bowl in California, as you are as well a brand developer and the website creator for them. Entrepreneurial ventures include you're the owner of Fire Girl Inc., and you owned and operated your family's seasonal eatery and ice cream shop in Michigan for a decade, emphasizing scratch-made menus and locally sourced ingredients. And the business in total was open for 40 years.
Yeah.
You have volunteered with Project Angel Food in LA and Meals on Wheels in Monterey Bay, showcasing a commitment to community service through culinary arts. Currently, you're based in Tampa, Florida, offering private chef services, custom catering, cooking lessons, focusing on fresh, whole ingredients and personalized menus. And your journey through healthcare to culinary arts reflects a deep passion for health conscious cooking and community engagement.
There's a lot.
Yeah, you have an extended background, which is fantastic. But I want to start off with my only scripted question for the audience, which is where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Jodi?
Okay. Thank you for that intro, by the way.
Sure.
Fun to get a reminder of all of the stuff I've done. What an interesting journey. But okay, so I was born in Michigan, Grand Rapids to be exact, and moved early on in my life to a small town called Capac, which is still there, being a small town. And my folks, they started their careers there, basically as young parents. And I remember dirt roads and payphones and riding bikes till the streetlights came on, walking to school, all the maybe the little cliches that we talk about now for Gen X kids, drinking hose water and riding on neglect, as they say. That, but not really. I did not feel neglected as a child. My mother, to this day, I think she feels like guilty or that I need some therapy because she was up running the ice cream shop every day in the summer and she wasn't home with us. But I can't speak for my brother, but I was like, are you joking? We rode our bikes all around, did whatever we wanted, and came up for free ice cream every day. We're fine. So it's a little, but you mentioned me owning the shop for the past 10 years. But when my parents started it, we were all blind leading the blind. They weren't food and beverage people, but they dove in and did it. And we as kids just embraced it and okay, we're doing this thing. And they put us to work within reason. I was into it and being in front of people and into working with the food where my brother wasn't so much and he'd help out at night, kind of thing. That was it. And then it was a small town. My father was the principal and everybody knew who he was. Everybody knew who I was. And that didn't end when I was an adult moving back buying that shop again, which is a whole other story.
So principal of the high school or the elementary school or
High school,
high school?
really.
Okay.
Junior high or one because it was so small. And that was it for 25 years, I think. So he
Gotcha.
did it.
And
Yeah.
other than helping out the shop, what did your mom do?
She was a teacher, majored in art and phys ed. And also she was a collegiate athlete. And then after college, she taught for a while, decided it wasn't for her. and I think it was phys ed. And then stayed home with us mostly, but kept with her athletic ability and that she became an aerobics teacher.
Yeah.
So it wasn't jazzercise, but it was something else in the 80s, like Jackie Swanson aerobics, some other franchise. And then she later broke off and did it herself. So she'd leave 3 nights a week and go teach in the community. And then that transpired into, I remember her doing country line dancing out, and that was the big like trend. And she'd go do that with her friends at local country bars and stuff, or dance halls or wherever they did it. And then later she became a country line dance teacher, and she still does that now at the community center in Geek.
Oh, wow.
But she also, for I think almost 25 years, was a choreographer for high school dinner theater and dance productions for Lance Cruz High School.
Nice. So you have some creativity that's in the family that's trickled down.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't tap into that for myself until probably mid college to late college, even after grad school. 'Cause I was
Okay.
so heavily focused on physical therapy. But I guess in my undergrad years, I used it as an outlet. I had a job at, I don't even know if you know this, job at a frame shop,
No.
or I guess that's what you call it.
Yeah.
Framing,
Yep.
paint where they frame artwork. And I did all the mats and frames, like design, cut, apply, did all that. That by
Nice.
hand at
Nice.
old shop. Anyway, yeah, so creative is in the DNA for sure.
So in elementary school, were you one of the kids who was off to yourself, quiet, maybe a little reserved, or were you one that was intermingling with everybody else and getting involved?
I was super engaged for sure. There's no way around that. And I remember being asked by my second grade teacher to befriend the new kids, that sort of.
Okay.
They seemed to get along well with the teachers. I don't know whether it was a function of being the principal's daughter, so they already knew who I was, or like, and because it was such a small town, like it didn't matter that he wasn't the principal of the elementary school. Everybody knew everybody wasn't.
Right.
I think the schools were basically attached almost anyway. But yeah, I remember having a little group of friends. And
Cool.
but I did in another way, I was in my own bubble as a child too. I don't think I knew everybody in the grade, even though it was quite small. But maybe that's a kid thing. You have your own kind of egocentric as a child anyway, I think generally. But
Yeah, you have your own little groups that you hang out with. But the teachers were recognizing early on that you were somebody who could be friendly and befriend the newer people, make them feel welcome, that kind of a thing.
yeah, I think so. I think so. One of those friends to this day, my biggest cheerleader and fan, I think because of that. She was the new girl, and she does know that the teacher asked me to be friends with her, but she still won't forget us.
That's cool that you still are connected with her.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's a function of a small town or that sort of thing, but yeah, we're still good friends.
Nice, nice. You mentioned you had a brother. He's younger, right?
Yeah, he's about 3 years younger than me.
3 years younger. Okay. So in second grade, when you're getting recognized by the teachers, he's still not even here yet.
Right, yeah, I don't know, yeah, something. We're older in second grade, 8, 7, 8?
7-ish, yeah. So-
Yeah, so he was itty bitty.
Okay. Did you experience any kind of bullying or anything like that in elementary school, being around kids who knew who your dad was, all that kind of stuff?
No, I didn't experience that until high school, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe no, I wouldn't call it bullying. There was the typical maybe 6th grade, like, boys hitting you in the arm because they actually really have a crush on you type of deal, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't that wouldn't come to mind with that question. It was more high school stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then elementary school wasn't really a whole lot of stuff going on for you that was leading to anything creative at that time in your head? Just basic, get up, go to school?
Now, I remember a few points where we had some art classes and we had a gifted and talented program when someone was involved in that sort of thing. And remember being engaged in the artistic stuff. And I had a family that obviously that was I come from a family of teachers, and even my grandmother was a principal of a high school. So
Oh,
yeah, or no, she was principal at elementary school. in the city, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. So these women demonstrated like individual strength and then also embraced any kind of school project there ever was. Like I was going to get it done and get it done well. I can remember some significant art projects that came from that, but I didn't, I don't know. Yeah. The elementary school stuff was not really, in terms of the creative, I don't know. I didn't feel sparked by that, I guess, that
Gotcha.
early.
At what age did they put you into the gifted and creative?
Yeah, I guess that would be considered elementary still, maybe fifth grade, fourth, fifth,
Yeah. Okay.
sixth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that age bracket.
Yeah, that's about when it was for me as well. I was going I was going into 4th grade,
Okay.
and for us, it was called Project Plus,
Oh, cool.
in Mount Clemens. And just for reference for the audience too, we know each other. We've known each other for a few years now. Had some
I didn't know if I was supposed to give that away.
No, that's all right. And so where you lived in relation to where I lived was about 30 minutes drive in terms of distance. But yeah, 4th grade was I was going into 4th grade and they had said, "All right, you're gonna put you into the Project Plus, and you're gonna get to go to the high school for half a day to do art stuff, swim in the pool, play basketball, do whatever." And then that's when my parents pulled me out of public school and put me into private school, and it was just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah,
Miss
that oh,
Yeah, so with that, was there anything special that you remember back that you got to do in that program that really interested you?
honestly, I don't know if I no, not even a little. Can't even make it up. And I think I look it back on some of those things, while well intended, I also know at some stage I would be, like, in air quotes, yelled at by the teacher, "Sit still," and then I'm just bored. I would think I was understimulated a lot, and, yeah, I remember looking back on that. I don't have a specific memory. I don't know if I just block things out or just move on. I wasn't that great, or I don't know.
Okay.
I don't it doesn't sound as exciting as your Project Plus at all. I think I almost think it was an after school thing. No, yours sounds better. You could leave school and do special things.
Yeah.
That was memorable. I don't remember that.
Yeah, okay. Alright, so let's fast forward into junior high. At that point, I'm assuming that you're going to shift from going to the elementary school into the junior high school, so you're transitioning between a building, so to speak, correct?
Yeah, and I do think K-Pac's a little bit of an anomaly in terms of school systems because it was so small and everything was so merged. But so we went into the high school building at eighth grade,
Yeah.
14, which is super squirrely age, right? I got lucky because I had moved out of braces and glasses and into contacts, then no braces, thank God. I was already self-conscious enough as the principal's daughter and just it was a lot for me, but yeah, so we and the 8th grade was, like, on a separate wing, so we didn't have to interact too much with the older kids, but yeah, that was that, just for the 1 year.
Right. Okay. Did you play any sports up at this age yet or anything like that?
Yeah, and I was gonna comment on that because I know we're talking about the creative, and I think that's why it bloomed so late for me. There's other reasons, which we'll probably get to in the high school era,
Okay.
but I was heavily athletic, like, from a young age, whether it was baton twirling and even cheerleading to T-ball slash fast pitch, because they got me in the wrong league by accident.
Oh, wow.
I'm still traumatized. I got a nosebleed before every game because I was so stressed out. I was waiting for those 14-year-old girls to whip a ball at my face. As a 9-year-old, I was
Right. Oh, yeah.
but yeah, so I did a lot of sports, and then in middle school, my parents gave me a choice. Can't do all the things. Do you wanna do band or do you wanna do gymnastics? And I had already been doing gymnastics. They really fostered that early on in, like, classes or whatever to go to different high schools. Like, I would travel to Romeo High School for little gymnastics camps and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
K-Pac didn't have it. Like, my parents were from the city, so they knew what was potentially out there. And I'm grateful that they recognized that at a young age because I got to see a lot more than those kids did that grew up there. So I chose gymnastics and I competed in Utica, which is 40 minutes from my parents' home, and they drove it 3 times a week so I could do it.
Wow.
And did that till 7th or 8th grade.
Okay.
And then moved into other sports, like typical high school sports, volleyball, basketball,
The fast pitch, was that baseball or softball?
softball.
Softball. Okay. Let's talk about the anxiety that would generate for you for a little bit. Was it a anxiety of the dynamics, or was it an anxiety of, I don't want to be around these other girls?
Gosh, it's really going back a ways. But I'm guessing it's around the other girls
Okay.
because, and I'm taking a hard look at elementary as a whole. And as a person, as I am an empath, I'm picking up all the feels all
Yeah.
around me at times. And I'm learning as a 49-year-old finally to hone that. But I believe it was that. And I joke about the stress of the game, but just not wanting to be there in general, whether it was fitting in or being the smallest kid or I don't know. But my body was telling me, you don't want to be here because I'd lead out before every game. And then my parents were like, Remenaps, don't quit. I hate it. Again, maybe I blocked it. I don't have super specific memories of it. In the scheme of things, it wasn't that large amount of time,
Yeah.
a couple months, one
Right.
summer or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's fast forward again to elementary school and starting to go into high school. So in between 8th and 9th, at that point, were you having any anxiety going into 9th grade? You're saying you were self-conscious in junior high, elementary, because you had glasses and braces. So with those being removed, are you still feeling some of that anxiety shifting into that transition, or is it?
Yeah, because it wasn't, I felt pretty good physically, but there was some teasing that went on in the early stages of all that is with me. And then being that teenage boys are who they are and they know who I am in relation to my dad,
Yeah.
it's a lot, like just being so intimidated and having to walk through the halls. And I don't know, it wasn't awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. And that's,
Anybody that's ever said to me, "Oh, don't you just miss high school?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not. How come I don't even really want to talk about it? I'm having a hard time talking about it with you right now, Rich. Gotta tell
yes,
you."
I know. I'm sensing that. And I'm trying to be gentle. But also too, I think it's key things that the audience can relate to. And that's why I'm trying to navigate it like I am, is because many times as sensitives and creatives, that's very early on that we experience that sensitivity, those creative inklings or inclinations, and especially the sensitive part. When you're a sensitive kid from the beginning, at very young ages, you experience everything from a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder on a creative who is on top of that sensitive as well. So I just wanted to point that out to the audience that if they're experiencing that, they weren't the only ones. There's more out there.
Absolutely not. And little things like I look back and I'm going to go back to elementary school again real quick where I
Sure.
realized, oh, I had a real hard time in big groups. Guess what's a big group every single day of your life until you're 18? Classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would fake being sick in elementary school so I could go to the office
Yeah.
and I knew there was a nurse's lounge or whatever, nurse's office or whatever, where they would let me lie down for 30 minutes or however long, just chill and like quiet with no one around me. And that
Yeah.
was never in my brain now, even I didn't do it too many times, but I remember doing it. And I guess I was fine. But I think I knew how to navigate it then, but didn't even know what I was navigating.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Did your grandma, you said your grandmother was a principal at elementary school as well. Did she recognize any of that sensitivity in you that you can remember at all?
No, I don't think she did. She was a very pragmatic and scientific woman,
Okay.
but my aunt definitely did, and she was also a teacher and understood, like, the dichotomy that is my personality where I am very outgoing. I don't
Yeah.
consider myself an introvert,
Right.
but I also need to retreat, and sometimes I'll just go under the radar because I got too many outside energies influencing me, and that's when I just need to recharge in different ways. It's
Right.
usually back. It doesn't mean I wanna be alone, but that is
Yeah.
but I would do that as a kid too.
Okay. Okay. With going into high school, are and your parents were telling you, look, we're gonna have to narrow down what these extracurricular activities are. Which of those did you choose?
Once I had stopped doing gymnastics, and that was I guess it plays to the creative because I am ambidextrous in many ways.
Yeah.
Like, once I started competing at a level where I was doing, like, rotations in the air, I was doing the approach as a right-handed approach and a left-handed rotation, and the coaches were like, "We don't even know how to spot you." And I didn't know how to do it. Couldn't negotiate it. I couldn't
Right.
execute
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I got real clumsy, and it just wasn't meant to be, and I moved off of that, and that was around that 7th, 8th grade time, really. And so it was probably perfect timing where I move into the high school, and then I was just in high school sports. So it was easy. I didn't really have to make a choice. It was seasonal. And back then it was free. We didn't have to do all this fundraising to be able to play.
Right.
Really wasn't too much.
And which sports did you gravitate to in high school?
Anything but softball.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't set foot on a diamond. The coaches wanted me to because I knew how to run. They're like, "We
Yeah.
can teach you hit." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm all set. Thanks."
Right.
I did volleyball. I did track volleyball and basketball.
Okay. Okay. Did you play soccer?
We didn't have it.
Didn't have it yet. Ah, all right.
We now do, but I don't know when that was implemented in Quebec. I don't know.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All
I'm
right.
playing pickleball now too because that's becoming a big deal.
Pickleball? Oh, yeah. Very cool. All right. Let's see. In high school, let's move into sophomore year, junior year. At that age, you're usually starting to recognize boys as more than the ick. Was there any scenarios where you're starting to be interested in boys and
Yeah.
congregate with them and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I had groups of friends that included girls and boys, and then, yeah, I think I started dating around 10th grade, right when I could start driving, that sort of thing. I actually sat back at some point then and was like, "Wow, I actually think I'm awesome," and then later in life, I was like, "I'm surprised I ever had a boyfriend," because my dad was the principal. But there were a couple that didn't seem to care.
Right?
Well, it works. Nothing too serious, but,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the answer to that.
I was gonna say, yeah, I could imagine that it might be a little bit of an intimidating factor that your dad was the principal, and knowing that, feeling comfortable to ask you out on a date or to a dance or whatever it might have been.
Right, and then I'm like, but as an and I've not been a teenage boy. Would there have been some that were, like, challenged by that? Oh, I could
Yeah,
screw that. I don't know.
for sure. I'm sure there was. Everybody's has those instances where they're looking at the dynamic of potential relationship and wondering, do I even want to be a part of that? Or what
Yeah.
are the pressures going to be of that? Am I going to get suspended if I do something wrong? If I make her upset or whatever, am I going to get kicked out?
Right.
I'm sure there's all those things. Are you starting to think about what you might do as a career at that point in high school? Or are you just focused on getting through high school?
I was okay, back I was boy crazy, focused on boys and friends heavily. Sports were important. There were a couple instances where I don't know, little arts and crafts things popped up and I was like, oh, and that felt great and I was good at it or whatever. I couldn't even tell you what it was. Like I made something out or I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I glued something and I was like, oh, this is fun. But no, because my mom's doing art fairs and craft shows. We had all that stuff. She was an art major,
Yeah.
which I mentioned. So it wasn't that she, no, on a back up and nobody's on trial here, but it wasn't totally fostered or pushed on me at all to
Okay.
do that. And I think too, because of my mom's own insecurities about art in the 70s in a very eclectic era when she was in college. She didn't, I don't know, she's a very good artist, but didn't
She
have a
is.
lot of concept. Yeah, she didn't have a lot of
She,
self-confidence about it.
yeah.
So when it came around that I could take an art class in high school, I didn't do it. And
Okay.
there were a couple of reasons. One, I think at that time she was substituting the art class. And I
Mhm.
was like, shit, now I got my mom and my dad in my high school.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty cool people, but it's okay. This is enough.
Yeah.
And several other kids had their parents there too, but as teachers, not the principal. And my dad was a hard ass. He was a true leader in that school and people revered and respected him. It's a lot. And then the other piece was the stigma or the way it was in that era, like the, in air quotes, burnouts took the art class. And
Okay.
a lot of those particular people were people that were, I guess we call it bullying me now. I never used that word back then,
Uh,
but they were harassing me on a regular basis.
okay.
So I was in avoid mode. Sorry if that cut out. I was avoiding it.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Yeah. I get that for sure. If most of those people that were in those classes were the ones that you're trying to get away from, there's no way you want to get into that. But since I do know you and I do know your parents, I can attest for the audience that your mom is very a good artist. Seen some of her work and it's phenomenal. And it's interesting that she had that insecurity
Yeah,
about that because she's really good. And you can tell whether or not an artist is good if they have excellent drawing skills, and she has that.
absolutely. And her creative comes out in so many other ways that we could talk about forever. But
Yeah.
yeah, but the drawing for sure is one of them. And I think it goes back to having a pretty scientific and pragmatic mother. My grandmother, it just, not that she wasn't supported,
Right.
but it was, the arts were secondary.
Correct. And that's an interesting storyline across a lot of the interviews that I've done already too, is that the arts from the older generations are looked at as not something that's going to sustain you as a career. So you got to decide something else if you're going to survive. And for creatives, a lot of time that's a hard decision. It's hard to commit to doing what's in your heart, what you feel, what you're really drawn to over I need to do what my parents say I need to do because that's what's going to save me in terms of paying bills, getting a house, all that kind of stuff.
Doing all the things we're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. At what point do you start thinking, all right, may go off to college and trying to figure out what you're going to major in if you do go off to college? And what,
Oh God. Okay, so college for me was never, or not going to college was not an option.
okay.
I think if I had pressed, if I had known another avenue, they would have supported that. But again, nobody's on trial. It's just how it was. And I think I was in first grade and asked my mom, what if I don't want to go to college? And my mother's cracking up, like, oh my God, can we please just get through first grade? College, the main point for college for me initially was getting away from home. Like they let me choose. So I ended up going to North Carolina and I came back after year one because I was so homesick.
Oh, wow.
I'm a kid that keeps moving away. It's so strange. But down there, did I take any art classes? I don't think I did. I don't know why. I just wanted to get through the early curriculars and like the basics. And in those, there was a lot of healthcare and anatomy and stuff that I had never been exposed to really.
Okay.
And having already gone through a knee surgery and physical therapy as a patient, those things really interested me. And so that is where it started and also why I transferred because the school didn't really have a strong physical therapy program. And I knew that Central Michigan did.
Okay.
And I wanted to be closer to home. Basically, my whole family is CMU alumni. So it felt cool to go there. And that's how I ended up. I switched and I went into health sciences,
Where did you go in North Carolina?
UNC Asheville.
Okay. All
And
right.
I think there's a lot out there right now about our subconscious and what we do. And it was going, why would you go to like a commuter school essentially out of state? And why would my parents pay for that anyway? God knows. But they let me. And I did have some family down in Asheville at that time. So maybe but it's going back to what's comfortable, right? Like in my 18-year-old subconscious brain, smaller is comfortable. I'm used to a small town. I wasn't ready to be in a big city
Right.
with age quite yet. I wanted the city, but not really.
Yeah. And two, Asheville's it's not completely rural, but it's rural enough around the areas to be similar to KPAC
Yeah.
in terms of that.
And actually backing up a little bit, I think part of my decision was because in the early 90s, there was that initial big movement for save the earth, recycling and all that. And I was working with our school system in high school to start a recycling program and thought I really wanted to go into something, I don't know, geology, environmental science,
Okay.
that. And then in taking some of those classes, I was like, no, I don't think so. But that's when I also got into health sciences. So the freshman year that year was really informative in terms of guiding the path, but I
Right.
still really didn't dive into anything creative until later, much later.
Okay. Okay. And with being there in North Carolina, did you stay in the dorms or you have an
Yeah.
apartment
Yeah, I was in the dorms.
in the dorms? How was that environment for you in terms of relatability and being surrounded by new people?
No, it was so hard. I hated it too. And
Okay.
college, having roommates, I think, is one of the major life lessons of going to college.
Yeah.
And I realized from that level of a small town, K-Pac being, I think, still only 1,500 people, FYI, to the audience.
Yep.
I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know, I wasn't comfortable doing that. And I didn't know that. I'm an outgoing person, but I didn't know how to actually make and foster and nurture friendships because I didn't really ever have to. I knew everybody since basically birth. Since kindergarten, K through 12, I knew all the same people. And so that was one of the experiences. And then also blossoming out into the world where Asheville is a very eclectic community
Yeah.
and K-Pac was not.
Right.
So I was like fascinated and intimidated and all these meeting people that had lived in other places and done so many things or whatever. Everybody's comparing and contrasting, but it was interesting. It was a good year. It
Nice.
was,
And so you're deciding you're going to come back to Michigan and go to Central, partially because it's in the family in terms of a school of choice, but also too, you're moving into more of a focused program in terms of what you think you're going to do.
yeah. Yeah. I was just so heavily focused. I don't even think I didn't allow myself or know how to have fun. I didn't drink like everybody did there and didn't care about football and all that. But I was focusing on becoming a physical therapist. Like that got into my line of sight and there was no shifting it. And that was that.
And it's interesting too, from the perspective of what I'm seeing in terms of your grandmother being that of the mindset that's really focused and educated, your mom having some of that, but yet she has a creative side about her. And then your dad being the principal dedicated to studies and that kind of thing. And you're shifting into that mindset of, I'm going to get down to this and get through it because it's what I'm going to do. While you're there, how much difference did you see in environment compared to UNC Asheville?
I felt like home because it was very Midwestern.
Okay.
I think it's back to the same thing, like growing into the comfort level.
Yeah.
It's easy to look back on and go, "Oh, I could have done this. I could have gone anywhere else. And why didn't I go to California? It's like, I didn't like winters. Why would I go back to it?" But fast forward the story, I just kept doing that. Yeah, it was a completely different environment.
Got you. And the class and study work, that it seemed pretty easy for you to get through and get into it.
I liked for the most part, once I got through the basics, once I got more heavily into my field, that was all fascinating to me, and I became a sponge.
Okay.
I'm very interested in the human body. I think became very good at knowing the anatomy and physiology and stuff like that. But it was more the drive for the end goal
Yeah.
that kept me going. I don't, looking back on it at the time, I don't know if I would have recognized it. Like the drive to the end goal more than enjoying what I was actually doing or
Right.
being in the moment and enjoying the people around me or whatever.
Sure. The reason I'm asking these questions is because I do know some of your story already. So what I'm trying to do for the audience is just draw and set up certain points that I'm going to circle back to later on with already knowing some of the story. With being focused on that, are you attempting to do anything outside of just the normal classes? Are you doing any extra social curricular stuff, sororities, sports, any of that type of thing?
I did club swimming and I was a lifeguard, but that was my job. So I mentioned earlier I was in the frame shop. I had friends that worked there and we had fun.
Yeah.
I worked at TCBY, which again, backed up. I'm like, oh, this is a good therapy session, Rich. Thanks. Yeah, I went back to the comfort level again. This is what I know. It's what we do.
Yeah.
But there, and okay, this is good because I think it was then later in college, I did a summer at Western, 2 summers at Western Michigan and Kalamazoo, and
Okay.
worked at that TCBY shop. I think I started at that one, and that was the highest. Does everyone remember TCBY? Do you remember this
I
store?
remember it. Yes. Others may not. It's a kind of like a Dairy Queen, except
The country's best yogurt when
yeah.
frozen yogurt became a thing,
Right.
but it was still the same soft serve machines that my parents used, so I felt like I knew something all about it. And yeah, it was late college. I got a job with Kalamazoo doing that, and they were the highest grossing retail shop in the United States of all the TCBY chains
Oh,
that
wow.
were. And it wasn't huge or anything, but they just had good sales, and they also did ice cream cakes. So that sparked something for me that carried through my ice cream shop days, which I don't know if you knew this, but I learned how to decorate cakes. And it was awesome because I didn't have to bake the damn cake. I don't bake. I'm a chef. Can't cook. That is it. I almost failed chemistry, but somehow made it through and got into grad school. I don't know. That's a whole other thing, but I don't bake. And that sparked that piece of creativity. That was probably the crumb of food and beverage, even though all the history of working in my parents' little restaurant, but
Right.
that didn't hit or connect until much later.
Yeah. But that, like you're saying, that's the initial sparkling of that creative expression
Yeah.
in doing that's going to set some of the tone for later on.
Yeah, 'cause they
Um,
let me do it. They needed somebody to assist, so they taught me and let me take it on, which was cool.
with shifting back and forth between Western and CMU, are you experiencing any differences in cultures between the two campuses at that point in time as well?
Yeah, and when I was making the shift back to Michigan, I chose CMU over Western. And then later when I went to Western during the summers, I was bummed that I had chosen Central over Western because I liked it for that reason. It was a little bit more eclectic.
Yeah.
The city's a little bit has a little bit more to offer.
Yeah.
But I ended up spending some time there after CMU anyway.
Okay. All right. Moving towards the end of college, looking at graduation, are you starting to set your sights on a particular place or location that you're going to try and shift into in terms of work with your degree?
Yeah, that happened all very quickly once I did all my internships and everything, I'd been pretty much around the state. I already mentioned Kalamazoo. I went back to Port Huron area. And I was with someone at the time where we were getting married and at the end of grad school.
Okay.
And it was, hey, where do we want to move? And I'm like, nowhere here. So let's go. And we ended up moving to California together. I was never licensed as a physical therapist in Michigan until much later when I moved back. So I took the test and got licensed in California after I moved out there, about a month after graduation.
Okay. Did you get married before you moved out there or after?
Yeah. So we graduated Saturday, May, whatever. And then 1 week later got married. And 2 weeks later moved to California. I
Whoa.
wasn't thrilled.
Holy crap. That was very fast.
Yeah. Like it was planned, but we were moving and grooving.
Okay. And had you guys been together most of college?
Yeah, all of grad school. So 3 years at least.
Okay.
Yeah. 'Cause I met him in Kalamazoo. Yeah.
All right. And then you guys get out to California. Where did you go straight to LA or where did you go?
No, ended up in the LBC. No, actually Huntington Beach. And my first job was in Long Beach. And this is just a funny little side story for anyone that doesn't know. If you look on a map and think that 12 miles won't be the death of your first marriage, just double check the traffic. Oh my God. Because I have a little slight feeling that it might have something to do with it. I lived on Huntington Beach at that time. I didn't even know. I was so naive. And like the joke about being fresh off a turnip truck, that was us. Oh my God. And it was like just this wide, doe-eyed, oh my God, what have I been missing? Just dove right into life. And I joke now, oh yeah, I grew up in California because I feel like that's really when it started. Like the bubble had been popped and I'm just ready to live now. And so Huntington Beach, Surf City, USA, didn't even know that's where I was.
Yeah.
And then working in a clinic in Long Beach and eventually a couple other clinics in Huntington. Because it seems I can't work one full-time job. I got to space it out. So I was like independent contractor for most of my PT career.
Got you. And how long were you guys out there before you decided to come back to Michigan?
I was there probably 14 years and then decided I just didn't want to live in Los Angeles anymore. And it turns out the ice cream shop was for sale. So I did it.
So wait a second. You're married for 14 years while you're out there?
No, that little marriage ended.
Okay. So you're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead past. You're jumping ahead past a bunch of story.
But you asked, how long were you doing LA? 14 years. Yeah.
But what I meant, I thought you had moved back to Michigan not long after being out there for a short stint. But you're out there and you're saying because of the traffic being one of the circumstances that kind of created that ending of that scenario for you. How long was that into you guys being out there?
A few years.
Okay.
And that joke about the traffic is like my stress level. It turns somebody into a different human after driving like that. But all joking aside, once we split, I carried on my life in LA proper and moved into West Hollywood area. If anybody knows that fun city where anything is possible.
I'm sure quite a few creatives understand where West Hollywood is.
Yeah, I lived there for 12 years.
Okay. And also too, with that experience of, number one, you're a ton of miles away. You clicked out.
Okay, I'm with you.
Traffic is crazy. It's killing you. And the marriage is coming to an end. And working at multiple places like you are, all those things coming to a head. What's your mental state like at that point in time? Go ahead.
As a 28-year-old that hadn't really done too many deep dives into anything but books, I was in total fight or flight, didn't know it, and didn't really know how to strike balance and understand it's okay to take time for myself to understand what and why everything happened and to take some time off work, which I didn't do. And that backfired big time.
Okay.
And just being who I was, like, maybe it's a function of youth, but blaming outside people or making outside circumstances more dramatic than they needed to be. That's what I remember that time being. And just, yeah, it wasn't easy. But looking back on it, going, okay, probably should have taken some time off work,
Okay.
but made it through.
So did you dive in deeper to work, started working more and more with what you were doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back of the timeline. I didn't stay in that area too much longer.
Okay.
Things were changing in the workplace dynamics. They were making moves with their offices and stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe time to move on. And I had family up in West Hollywood. So I was in Orange County, Huntington Beach, and then I moved north to Los Angeles County, LA proper, the West Hollywood area of that city. And I went for it. I had already applied. And this is a testament to the universe and how when I put my mind to something, generally it works out. Like you can attest to this. I have a knack for getting jobs. I don't know. But this is a similar case where I had already applied somewhere in the area where I wanted to move and it didn't work out at that time. But now 2 years later, even I can't remember if I reached out or if literally they called me. I have a feeling they found me in their file.
Okay.
And it might have been the spark. It was 25 years ago.
Right.
But it ended up that I ended up working at the clinic where I initially interviewed. I flew out to California trying to find a place to work. And that one in particular didn't work out. But then 2 years later, I did. And it moved me up there. And it just worked out because that ex still lives in Orange County. And I ended up having my life separate in West Hollywood.
West Hollywood. Exactly.
Yeah.
In this new environment of West Hollywood, being a town where pretty much everybody knows that Motley Crue is one of the famous bands that's from the area, and you have the music venues that are renowned around the world. Other bands as well that have come out of that area, different music genres that have come out of that area. You got the record labels in that area. Are you still ingrained in physicality of what you're doing work-wise, or are you seeing this is part of a way for you maybe to blow off some steam of what the experience of the marriage ending and trying to distract yourself? Did you find any of that take place where you're trying to distract versus just focus on creative, or not creative, but the physical work aspect?
I think at that time I blocked things out and okay, that's it. I'm moving on rather than dive into why it happened, how I felt about it. And I did grieve it, but moving into that area and just that life in general, and probably partly why the marriage ended was I wanted to go do things. I want to see and do everything.
Yeah.
I had a very good childhood. I was exposed to a lot geographically and in travel and all that, but I wanted more as an adult. And that I had that in LA all around, because California, my God, it's so easy to have an adventure in 2 days. You can be in the mountains or the ocean or
Right.
a different state. And so I did all and everything that I could, whether it was concerts, small and large, going out to eat and trying any kind of new food that I possibly could, or getting into nature as much as possible. And that was at that time what I was doing. And it was mountain biking and hiking and traveling to do that on the weekends.
And some of the things that I've talked about with other interviews is that astrology comes up. And me knowing that you're our Sagittarius, that plays right into what a Sag is, that wanting adventure, that wanting to experience anything and everything and constant new engagement with things.
Yeah.
So that makes complete sense. And just give some extra reference for the audience as well who may be into astrology and that type of thing. At what point do you start seeing that physical therapy is not the thing that you want to keep doing, even though you've got a master's degree?
Yeah. Year 2 of the program? No.
Wait a second. You needed a whole another 2 years plus?
Yeah.
knowing that you didn't want to do this?
Yeah. That's one of those sliding doors moments. I had the universe gave me that roadblock of of not being accepted into the program
Okay.
initially.
Yeah.
I was devastated because I was on that track and I never failed anything. And I was that person, or so I thought I was. And then I really wanted to go into naturopathic medicine, but then suddenly I got accepted into the program on an alternate list. And that was the universe going, "Are you sure? Which one is it?"
Yeah.
And because was still so ingrained in those belief systems of, what you go to college and you do the thing that you studied and paid for, I did it, right? Because I felt like, what a waste if I don't. Of course, it wouldn't have been a waste. So I did it. And then in year 2, I still had my own health issues, and naturopathic medicine came up again to help me solve those. So I was like, shit, I really want to go into naturopathy, but I'm 2 years into this master's program for which I've already paid. And because of fear and just basic fear. And that's a testament to the audience. Please trust your heart. That's the hardest. You already said it. It's so hard to follow that
Yeah.
when the logistics get in the way and people's voices get in your way. And there's one other thing I will say about it later. Just in general, a piece of advice I got this week that it was like, did that a lot along the way, but I'm going to try not to do it anymore. Don't take advice from people who haven't been where you want to be. And I was getting a lot of advice from people acting out of fear, from their own perception or whatever.
Yeah.
And when really I just needed to follow my heart and my gut. Now, physical therapy worked out for me in the end. It gave me a lot of opportunities and a job to fall back on at every turn and a lot of experience and knowledge. So it was good. But to your question, in the career, probably 2.5 or 3 years after graduating, I was getting to that point where I'm like, almost taking on people's symptoms. I'm an empath. I not only can sense energies in a room and feel everybody's feels, I got to detect which one's actually me compared to who I'm encountering. So imagine putting my hands on bodies all day long. And I specialized in myofascial release and things that were very hands-on. Many
Yeah.
exercises were executed by an assistant. I did the intricate physical stuff with these
Yeah.
people, and seeing 10, 15 people a day and absorbing their stuff. I didn't even know. And I was in the right place. California is the place that would understand all that, whether it's astrology or energy work and all the woo stuff that other parts of the country might not embrace even now. But
Right.
I got advice, like, you need to clear your energy. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And I did get some help along the way, but really it became about striking a balance, literally working less as a PT. And in that time, I discovered that I wanted to start cooking because I didn't know how to cook
Okay.
really at all. And then I was living as an adult. I need to learn how to cook. And that's how that all started.
Right.
The chef thing.
Okay. Let's shift into that. How did you decide, all right, I'm going to go to this school versus another school potentially in the area?
For cooking.
Yes.
Yeah. And that took a while. I was already cooking for people before I decided to go to culinary school. It happened very organically. I was learning to cook healthy. People saw that, my friends and things, and word of mouth. Everybody knows people out there.
Yeah.
I chose, it is a Le Cordon Bleu, I don't even know if it's still there, Le Cordon Bleu school, but it was called the Kitchen Academy, and it was purposefully not the 2 or 3 year program. It was functional, like lab kitchen, huge, beautiful, brand new. And I chose it because I already had 7 years of college. I don't need college. What
Right.
I need to know is how to cut an onion for real and some of the real stuff of being a chef, and just getting some street cred really is where I was at. And I wanted to build my confidence doing it.
And what was that like for you when you got into it? Was it a feeling of, oh, this is definitely where I want to be? These are kindred spirits that are in here working with me or working around me? Or was it, I've just got to get this figured out and get back to doing the stuff that I've been doing?
A little bit of what you said. I felt all of us were really happy to be there.
Yeah.
And it was it wasn't an all day thing. It was like a half day at night. It was great. So I could still work, but my work at that time was cooking for someone. So it was really cool because I could implement it. And I felt like I was doing what my heart really wanted to be doing. And I was motivated in every aspect of that. I'm a competitive person. So kindred spirit, yes, to a point, but I was also a little competitive in that classroom. Even if it wasn't outward, it was just me with myself, or even side eyeing the other people like, oh, I can do that better than that.
Are you starting to look at potential opportunities other than being a private executive chef? Are you looking at, maybe I want to work for a company, maybe I want to start my own kitchen, maybe I want to open a restaurant? Are you thinking of any of those types of things?
Not at this precise moment. A little side dream, because I've already owned a restaurant type situation,
Yeah.
would be to have a bougie little, very small bar serving kind of cool, light, or maybe small bite type food.
Yeah.
But that's really in the recesses of my mind. I'm exhausted by business ownership still, and I've had 2.5 years away from it. But I'm just now feeling like getting back into promoting myself as a private chef. There's a number of avenues I want to take with that. And one is lessons. I love talking to people about how to cook. I'm not the best cook ever. I know some techniques to share, have some ideas and approaches to food that could help people. And that's an avenue I'd like to take. I have some recent connections where I have access to a commercial kitchen, hopefully. And that's, I think, as any chef, part of the challenge is having a kitchen space to use.
Right. All right.
But
So
yeah,
let's put a pin in that for a second and rewind just a bit. I want to go back to West Hollywood, cooking, doing the private chef stuff. You doing that, you said you were out there for 14 years. So within that 14 years, when did Clean LA come across your radar?
also very organic meetup, friends of friends. And again, I was an independent contractor. I was cooking privately for some people, and I was also a PT. So I've done both for a long time. And I remember a friend of the then, or what became the CEO and founder of Clean LA.
Yeah.
I want you to meet her. I want you to meet Kiki. She just wants to talk. She needs a chef. And I was like, okay. And I remember showing up in scrubs at a Starbucks and talking to her. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do this. And it was a total startup. And sorry, I'm getting weird notifications. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. It's on point with my philosophy, my food philosophy.
Yeah.
And everything about it felt really aligned. And it became as such. It started out of her apartment where I was cooking all day and she'd help me deliver at night. And then we'd be done and do it all again the next day. And in that time, we were developing recipes and eventually moved into a real kitchen.
And you also ended up doing their branding for them and also did their website. How did that come about in terms of, because it's not necessarily a natural thing for a chef to understand what it means to create a brand image or icon for a brand, and then also to turn around and do the website for the business as well.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So talk to everybody about how that evolved.
I had been the chef. I think I had already left as the executive chef. And full disclosure, during my time there, because I was so ingrained, that was my baby too.
Yeah.
And I ended up transitioning out of being the executive chef and moving back to Michigan at the time. Okay.
All right.
And partly because it was time for me to leave LA. And then I realized I didn't know the longevity of it because it wasn't truly my company. It was Kiki's company. So she had to do it her way.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I had a little bit of a voice within the website and how that was being built during the time I was there. And when we're still friends to this day, during my time in Michigan, not long after I left, she contacted me and we were talking about how she was redoing the website, having trouble. And because of what I was doing at that time, I had already become adept at using the third-party platform to build your own website. And I said, hey, I think I can help you for a lot less money than you're paying these people overseas.
Yeah.
And so we dove back into working together in just a much different capacity, which is really cool. So I ended up flying back out to LA and working with her for several weeks on it. And over the course of several months, we got it to where she wanted it to be.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then after that, you came back to Michigan?
I was already in Michigan. I was with Clean LA, and the website production happened after I had ended my tenure there. While I was there, I was just her chef. I left LA 2014.
Yeah.
And then went back home and purchased my parents' ice cream shop.
And at that point, was it a scenario that they were just done and tired with it? Or was it a situation where it's like you wanted to come in with this new idea of cooking clean, cooking with ingredients that are from the area, that type of thing? What was the pivot point of doing that?
It was a combination, right? Like I was ready to leave LA, ready to not be the executive chef anymore. She was moving in a different direction. And the eatery and ice cream shop came up for sale. And the people that owned it, because my parents had it when I was a kid.
Yep.
Remember, little daughter and all that.
Yep.
And then they sold it. A couple people in between owned it. And the owners at the time in 2014 had always said, right of first refusal for me and my family. And so I was also the highest bidder. So I got it back. Yay. And we dove right back in. But that was what I wanted to do. And I think at that time, and every executive chef, I think you'll ask at some point wants to have their own thing. And it was what I wanted to do. I tried. So it's a long story, but that was it, to just implement a bigger, fresher menu and local ice cream and all that.
Yeah. And for sure, I do know, but the audience doesn't. So what I would like to do, what I'd like to do is move into the first few years of you being back and taking that on and taking that responsibility and handling that. What is that doing to you physically, emotionally, mentally, all of the above?
Yeah, I think we need to nutshell this because it could become a therapy session real quick. But now this is hindsight, right?
Yeah.
And I've looked at it hard because, audience, I have now sold the business. It was a great run, but it's bittersweet. And a lot of it is, wow, I got to live near my parents and work with them daily as an adult. And I didn't do that before. Now he's not the principal anymore. This is interesting, but it's still theirs. But I wanted to carry on their name, but make it my own. So there was all those challenges along the way, and realizing just how tied to it my mother is. That was her artistic expression for 20 years or more than 20 years.
Yeah.
Within that space, whether it was she was drawing the menus or creating the recipes or silk screening the shirts by hand. My God. So it was a delicate dance that we did for 10 years, and they were so supportive. So that there were lots of lessons there. And a lot of it was based in follow your gut and trust it at the time. Because I can look back and go, oh, God, why did I do that? Whatever, about a lot of things.
Right.
But also, I think it was a case of, I'm a chef. I'm not a business major. A lot of doctors, they're great doctors, that maybe they aren't so great business people. But in order to make money, sometimes you got to own your own practice. Like, it's a tough thing.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line that you have to walk. Also, too, the running into the 2019, 2020 era, we're experiencing the onset of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And this is right around the time that you and I met as well. And you were looking at the business, looking at what was going on within the community, but also too, you had this new vision of what you wanted to evolve it into other than just an ice cream shop, fast, quick hot dogs, burgers, drinks, that kind of thing. You wanted to move into actually doing some crafting of food and whatnot. What was the decision in your head, other than just what the local environment was, but what was the decision in your head that wanted you to move in that direction?
Again, looking back on it, I think partly it was more of an attempt to make it my own,
Okay.
feeling like in order for me to feel at peace with it.
Yeah.
But the mistake there, ultimately, I think it worked out because for the audience, I tried to rebrand it. And it's like one of those mistakes you're like, oh, God. But was it a mistake? I don't know. Maybe it worked out because it was during COVID
Yeah.
and so much change was happening and everyone was so freaked out.
Yeah.
And I was able to stay open a bit more than most people because I had outdoor patio
Yeah.
access. But looking back on that, because I briefly rebranded it and people freaked out in the community because you can't retrain a small community after then it was 35 years old, essentially.
Yeah.
When they know it to be this one thing. And it scared the shit out of them. And in a minute, I was embarrassed that I did it and felt bad. And then I'm like, no, it worked out because I flipped it over the winter and was like, hey, the old brand is back. It was like, I think almost lit a fuse for people and made them appreciate what was there all along.
Yeah.
That also, during that time of rebranding, it was a time where in order to make this work for me, I had to remodel the kitchen. Rich knows that I tiled that damn floor myself because during COVID, the local sheriff wasn't going to let the two people that already lived together stay inside and work on my tile floor. But that's another story. I'm a small town.
Yeah.
It's okay. I learned how to tile a floor. It looks great. I'm so proud of it. And it was a commercial kitchen, but it turned into my commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
And then became catering through the winter. And that's what it ended up being.
Yeah. And I'm not going to let you take all the credit in tiling that floor because I did drop a few of those tiles.
I know you're doing it. You helped me cut the tiles and paint some things.
I got into a project that was more than just to help with a logo rebrand.
Some graphics. I know. Listen, everybody knew by the end of that stint that if you're standing around long enough, you're going to be working on something else.
Exactly.
You can come talk to me, but I'm going to put you to work.
Yeah. The thing that I've been wanting to point out with people and where I've moved throughout your story is the fact that one of the things that I've always recognized within you is that you've never been afraid to pivot. And for the creative community, that is a thing that is struggled with quite often.
Okay.
Is doing something for a certain amount of time and being comfortable in it and being afraid to look at other opportunities that you may be able to apply your skill sets at.
Definitely.
You have not been shy about being willing to do that. And I want to highlight that for you and throw you some flowers. Because that is a thing that other creatives can look at and take some courage in, knowing that there's other creatives out there who take that opportunity with a little bit of fearlessness. Some of that plays into the fact that you're Sagittarius, but for the most part, if you get uncomfortable with what you're doing, you are willing to shift and move to something else, or at least move to it for a period of time till you get to where you really want to be. So I wanted to highlight that. The other element that I want to bring into this storyline, and we can talk about this because it's going to play into what I believe you're about to shift into now. It's the connection between the body and food and how that also helps with mental state, which I don't think is talked about enough, especially in the creative community and dealing with creatives who have mental health struggles, who deal with depression, suicide, and different things like that.
Absolutely.
There's a book out on the market that is highly informative, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And in this book, it talks about what the body does in reaction to experiences that take place. And eventually the body says, I'm done. I can't take it anymore. And it reacts, whether it reacts as an illness, whether it reacts as an infection, it reacts, it just physically puts you on your back, won't let you do anything. But with all the knowledge that you have in the physical body and how it functions, how it operates, how it moves, and then going into culinary arts, understanding how food can benefit you, can be creatively beautiful as well as beneficial. Can you talk a little bit about how that food and body connection can play into an individual's life?
Oh my gosh, where do we start?
Where do you feel?
Yeah, that is where it started for me, is I healed something on my own in my 20s
Yeah,
through food and natural herbal remedies
right.
because I wasn't getting where I wanted to be in the Western model. That's how it all started. And I know people don't want to hear it, but it did start with an elimination diet of getting rid of the crap I was eating and being made fun of from my friends. What do you mean you're not eating bread? What do you mean you're putting lemon in your water? Whatever. And at that time, it wasn't as common as it is now, and we didn't have as much information as we did. I think I had a flip phone. Okay, what's it? We didn't have the knowledge, or even what I think may become the governmental support that we might be moving into to
Right.
ridding of the chemicals from our foods. And so I think it just starts with an awareness. First, I think people have to be aware of themselves.
Yeah.
And understand it. A lot of people, I don't think, understand how bad they feel until they start to feel a little bit better. Because we can maintain. It's like you can drive along in the car with the cake for a long time, but something's going to break down eventually, like you said.
Yeah.
I think it starts with awareness, and that's the awareness of how you feel and that you need to make a change. And how do I do that? Those steps and the baby steps can feel like huge steps too.
Yeah, for sure.
So because there is, and now I think it's maybe the opposite. There's so much information out there. Where do you even start?
Yeah.
My whole message, because I'm not perfect. I don't eat perfectly. I still drink. I like to eat out a lot. But in terms of giving energy to it, like just even mental or emotional, I will not have guilt about what I eat.
Yeah.
I don't even give the food that power over me. But then ultimately knowing like what you put in is going to affect you. And the fact that we ingest as a country foods that we don't even know how to pronounce, that's step one. If you can't pronounce it and don't know what it is, then maybe we shouldn't be eating it. That's my whole tenet. And that was Clean LA's philosophy. Every single thing was whole ingredients. And maybe people don't know what that means, but it just means like food. It's just food. You read it and it's a whole ingredient. It's a sweet potato. It's not a French fry. That's a potato, but it's got a whole bunch of other stuff potentially.
Yeah.
It's a hamburger. It means it's beef and it's some seasonings, period. Those are whole foods. And we could get into the 90s non-fat craze and how that has affected us negatively in this time and day, but whole foods being real fat, just real food.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I even answered your question, but that's my soapbox.
Yeah, no, you did. You did. And I want to expand on that a little bit more, because one of the things that I know about you, being the empath that you are, being as sensitive as you are, the mental pivots and shifts that you've made as well in terms of lifestyles and different ventures. At one point, you were doing Reiki work, which was probably a step that you, just because of circumstance, that you weren't necessarily ready to step into, and didn't do that for very long. But also too, you're very conscious of mind and body working in unison. And for other creatives who are in the food industry or looking to become chefs or any of that thing, for them to be conscious of the way that the body works in association with food, and if they have any kind of inklings of being an empath or highly sensitive, what is one thing you could say to them to help them navigate some of that process of moving forward that may allow them to skip a whole lot of grief and aggravation just of experiencing it because they don't know?
Can you reframe your question?
Yeah.
Not sure.
Yep. Earlier you were saying pay attention to your heart. Listen to your heart. Do the things that your heart wants you to do. For somebody who's out there that's looking at culinary arts, would it benefit them to understand the body a little bit more and understand themselves a little bit more as well, shifting into that type of career? Because if we want to take the example of Hell's Kitchen, right, as a example of what it's like to be a chef, right? Gordon Ramsay is at times very destructive in terms of a person's ego. And if you have a sensitive chef who's in that environment and is having to experience that, at what point maybe should they say, you know what, I'm going to go in this other direction over here to finish this out. I'm not going to stay in that type of the environment of being in the chef's world.
I think that would be the first step of analyzing why you want to be a chef in the first place. Is it to cook healthy food or to make artistic food? Is it to cater big parties? You want to be a banquet chef? Is it because you have an ego and you want the accolades of a chef on a food show? I think that's the real question.
Yeah.
I would not do well and did not ever become a restaurant chef because I don't want to be in that environment, period, end of story. It's in that, and one thing I didn't talk about was vibration and food and emotions and that whole piece.
Yeah.
But really looking at that first. And I had a leg up when I went to cooking school because I was already cooking for people and being paid for it. So I looked at the other folks and I felt bad because I knew some of them, they were going to become a line cook in the back of a kitchen. And that's not a bad thing. That's very hard work and it's very respectable work. That's nothing against that. But I just know if you're, in terms of the mind-body connection, cooking restaurant food is probably not the way to go.
Okay.
It's
Sure.
like it's just a pace and a setting that isn't probably conducive to health necessarily. Maybe certain parts of the country and little small eateries and cafes that are doing lower value. But in general, I think chefs are artists, and that's probably why they get into it for the most part. And they want to present and feed and nurture, like it's a way to nurture people.
Yeah.
So everything I said sounded negative, and I don't mean it that way to restaurant chefs. It's hard work, and maybe I'm just lazy. I didn't want to do it. Put in the hours.
Hey, no, I don't think that's the case. I don't think.
No, but as a sensitive, I can only speak for myself, really. And what that means to me is and even through the Reiki part that you mentioned, everything is energy. And even the emotions that we cook with are going into the food. And we can either raise the vibration of our food or we can lower it. So if you were to look at a plate of like green, beautiful, organic broccoli versus some fried food with beige gravy on it, which do you think has higher vibration? Which is more colorful and more appealing to the eye, maybe. Even if you don't like broccoli. I'm trying to prove a point, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's perfect. Let's go there a little bit more because you brought it up and said we didn't go in that direction, but let's talk about the connection between the vibration of the food and your energy and that type of stuff. How important is that in terms of what you're doing? And when I say how important is that in terms of what you're doing as an individual who's starting to become a chef or become a cook or just cooking in general, even if it's the housewife at home who's hearing this because her husband's a designer So she wants to start making some better food for the family.
Yeah. I think it's super important. The cleaner the food, the more energy it's going to give the body, supporting your blood sugar, which is good, especially if you're working long hours on something and you don't want to go in those highs and lows, the valleys of feeling like you're out of it and can't function or focus. And that's anybody in any workplace, right? I struggle with that now, or when I was the past couple of years doing events in a corporate setting. Like, how do I plan through my day? Because I can't go 5 hours without eating. It affects my brain. I can't think straight. I start making mistakes. I think we need to, as a collective, start recognizing that. And it's okay. It's human nature. It doesn't mean you have something wrong with you. It's human physiology. We need to be sustained throughout the day. And food that is low in sugar, high in protein, high in fiber, vegetables, protein, that does have a bit of fat in it can help sustain that. But if we're not willing as a collective, as parents, to look into the ingredients on food items or just cook fresh stuff, then it's not going to work. And then people are going to keep seeking medication and stuff to fix the problem. When if we just start with the food being the preventive, that's a start, right? Like, I think if people just back off of the processed stuff and try to make things more fresh, I guess that's where, I don't know.
Yeah. And with what you're starting to step into now, the possibilities, because you're about to do another pivot. You were doing the event coordination for a while with a couple of the hotels in the area around Tampa, Clearwater area. And you shifted into doing some bartending, and now you're about to shift again into another potential opportunity that's going to allow you to expand. How are you feeling about that as something on the horizon?
Just for the audience, I think as creatives, you have to give yourself permission. And this just happened to me recently. Okay, I just needed a break. It doesn't mean I can never be a chef again. Like, I needed just a side note, a stable job. I needed an income. I didn't have it in me after exiting my business and selling the business to do the hustle again. I didn't have the means even to just not know anybody and try to start a private chef business. So I took a break as
Yeah.
Rich. I was in corporate and it was good for a minute to get my feet under me. And now I'm like, okay, who and what I really am is my own boss. And to do that, I need to go back to cooking. But I'm going to pivot to do these other things. So then, and also artists out there, please don't like the self-talk, right? We're all in our heads. Oh my God, am I doing the right thing? I'm terrible. And then 1 minute you're great. 1 minute you're tits. I get it. I think, and also belittling myself. Oh no, I'm bartending. What? No, I'm not bartending. I'm a great bartender. I make great drinks. But it has been a way for me because there's always a door that opens, right? Because I just try to keep an open mind of, I'm here. This aligns with me right now. And when it doesn't align, I'll be done with it. For example, tomorrow's my last day at this place bartending. It no longer aligns. I've come into a different opportunity by way of meeting people at this bartending job. So I just have to trust. And that's the energy piece of it for me.
Yeah.
And the following, say it how you want. Follow your heart. People say it different ways. For me, it's just settle in. And if it gives me anxiety, I pivot. I think about it for a minute, but
Yeah.
So now I'm ready and I'm not pushing uphill anymore. That's the lesson over so many years. If it doesn't feel right, I just maybe go slightly left or slightly right. And I just try to keep remembering that, okay, for example, I've been trying to get into the Fine Arts Center here to teach lessons in their gorgeous, most beautiful teaching kitchen I've ever seen. For some reason, I don't know what it is. I have all the credentials. I have so many class ideas. It's not meant to be. It's not happening. Don't know why. I've heard from them, but then crickets. And I'm just done worrying about it because either it's timing or something else is going to come on. I don't know. That's that. I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yes, you did. You did. And again, too, just pointing out for the audience that if you're in something and it's creating this internal turmoil, and don't stay in it just because. look at other avenues or opportunities that may be available that just may be on the peripheral of your perspective of where you can shift and move into something that starts filling your heart again. Don't just stay in something that's literally tearing you down on a daily basis and is drudgery just because it's a paycheck.
Yeah.
I know you have to have a paycheck if you have a family and people that you're responsible for. I understand that, and that's not what I'm downgrading at all. But to convey, if you can be comfortable and be courageous enough to pivot, then the potential of that pivot could be phenomenal. And it could turn into something that is the joy of your life. And I think that's what I've seen within you over the time that I've known you and some of your story over the years is that you don't have a problem doing that. And you do recognize that within yourself. And when it gets to that point, you toe the line and say, I'm moving, I'm
Yeah.
shifting. I'm about
Something
to-
that helped me along the way, and it's, I think, tell me if this resonates with you at all, but especially as girls, right? We've all been taught that these butterflies in the stomach, and we're like, oh, I have butterflies. No, actually, that's your solar plexus telling you that something is wrong in Denmark, okay? That is your internal car alarm going off. And you said, I like the word internal turmoil better than anxiety because we've replaced so much on that. And
yeah.
whole other thing is to just, for me, take a step back and go, oh, like a literal physical feeling here to me is a sign to go, okay, wait a second. And I love how you said it. Look into the periphery, just a little bit left or a little bit right even. Do I really need to go head on to this? Because that's, to me, is when I know I'm pushing uphill. And if I just go, I'm just going to go over here just a little bit. And sometimes that feeling goes away and I'm like, yep, that's the right move. And maybe it's no move at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's no move at all. And you have to allow yourself to sit in it just a little bit longer to decide. You don't have to push. And so it's, I don't know, just to play on the pivoting thing, it's not as easy as it seems. It's taken me a lot of work to
For sure.
settle into who I am too, and be okay with it. Because there's a lot of people I think I've lost because they don't understand it. And I'm sure every artist out there will understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're weird. We're different. And a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's okay because it freaks them out and maybe makes them question themselves too. But that's all right. No one will ever understand how many jobs I've had and how I could possibly not be a physical therapist anymore after I did all that work and paid all that money. You know what? Oh,
Right. But, and two, it's not lost knowledge.
no.
You've utilized that knowledge across the board in many different things, many different aspects. And I've seen it. So it's not necessarily lost. And people, again, too, people that look at it and say that you may be wrong or you may be dumb because you decided to shift away from that after spending all that time and all that money. Everybody's an individual. Everybody does things differently. Nobody's the exact same to another person. So don't make that judgment without knowing or walking in those steps.
Yeah.
Because it's, in a sense, it's lazy, to be honest. It's lazy
Yeah.
to make a judgment like that when you've not walked in those shoes or not walked that path. But the experience of it all has got you to where you are now in this
Absolutely.
moment in time. So I think those are the things that should be highlighted. And I'm glad that we've been able to highlight them with this time together because it's a powerful story. And it's a story that I think will speak to quite a few creatives, men and female alike. I don't think it needs to be one way or the other, but because there's plenty of male chefs out there that are very good at what they do, highly
Sure.
creative, but also too, they're super sensitive. They can't handle being yelled at by somebody who's over them and being demonstrative to them to do their work just because something's going on up front.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I even now, like in this current restaurant where I am a bartender, that was part of my decision to exit and move on to something else, was a management style that didn't align with one, how I would do it. I don't own it. So it feels really nice to go, okay, run it how you want. But in terms of how they are engaging with people at times, I'm not into that. Like, I'm too sensitive and I'm too old to put up with it.
Yeah.
And I could have sat in it and go, oh, but I need the money, and oh, I need to stay, or oh, I'm quitting another job. It's thank you so much for this experience. I gained so much, and I actually really like the people in charge. It's just, it felt at times that Hell's Kitchen chef yelling. That's maybe work for some people, but it doesn't for me.
Yeah.
And maybe I would have put up with it in the past, but whew, that's tough on the energetic soul at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great place to end this episode on. And one of the things I always try to remind the audience at the end of an episode is to listen to your heart and be kind to your mind.
Love this.